Hi, boys and girls. This is Will Horniak, storyteller, with some stories today about simple actions that you and I can take to maintain a good, healthy, and clean Tualatin River. And my program today is sponsored by the Tualatin Basin Partners for Clean Water, who for many years have inspired and educated people to take care of the Tualatin River. And they're actually a very good example of the point of this story. The point of the story is that it's important to speak up on behalf of our environment, our earth, our Tualatin River watershed, because the rivers and the streams, they need our voice. Because people have spoken up on behalf of the Tualatin River over the years, the water is now cleaner now than it has been in years past. We have parks along the river. We have laws that regulate fishing along the river and laws that prevent it from being heavily polluted. There's much work still to be done, but even a small voice can make a big difference if we speak up. And that's what this little myth, this little story from the Nez Perce tribe is all about. How a small voice can make a big difference if you're willing to speak up. The Nez Perce people say that long ago, all of the animal people gathered together because they had to make a big decision. They had to decide how long day would be and how long night would be. Of course, the coyote people came. What do you think they sounded like? Coyote people? Can you hear? Oh, yeah. Oh. Right. Behind them were the mallard duck people. What do they sound like? Quack, 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 quack. Very talkative people, the mallard duck people. And then behind the duck people came the mole people. Shh, they're very quiet, the mole people. Well, the first one to speak about how long day and night should be, the first one to speak was, who's that? Grizzly Bear. Grizzly Bear was always the first to speak. And Grizzly Bear said, I want 6 months day and 6 months night. Well, nobody really wanted 6 whole months of day and then 6 whole months of night. But of course, nobody wanted to argue with who? Right, Grizzly Bear. And everybody just sort of said, okay, I guess we could make that work. No problem, Mr. Bear. Well, everybody said that. Everybody said that except for one tiny little frog. Can you imagine this tiny little frog? But frogs, they're very small, but they have big voices. And when Bear said 6 months day, 6 months night, Frog just looked up and said, mm-mm. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, Bear looked around. He couldn't see anyone. And finally he looked down. He sees this little frog. And Bear said, 6 months day, 6 months night. But Frog said, mm-mm. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 6 months day, 6 months. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 6 months day, 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, you know what happened? They kept arguing. And all Grizzly Bear knows how to do is to get louder. And that's what he did. He just kept shouting louder and louder. 6 months day, 6 months. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 6 months day, 6 months. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 6 months day, 6. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, on and on they argued. And finally, that big Grizzly Bear, he shouted so loud, 6 months day. And he shouted for so long. 6 months. just his voice. He said, 6 months. And Little Frog looked up and said, 1 day, 1 night. Well, the bear, he was so tired now. He went way up, up, and off into the mountains. And up there, he slept and he slept and he slept about 6 long months. But that little frog just kept speaking up. And you know, ever since that day, every winter time, when it gets cold, well, you watch Bear, he still goes to sleep a long, long time. But all the rest of us, we just have 1 day, 1 night, 1 day, 1 night, 1 day, 1 night. Let's thank the wonderful, great Nez Perce tribe for that wonderful story. But also let's remember that you can make a big difference if you just speak up. And you don't have to have a big, big voice to make a big, big difference. But you do have to speak up. So remember, speak up on behalf of our beautiful Tualatin River and the Tualatin River watershed. It makes a big difference. Thanks so much for listening to the story, everybody.